right now in midwinter, we're in this inhale, this hibernation that none of us want to confess to. So today, the talk is called Teach Only Love. And of course, in Miracles, we have this invitation to teach only love. But how do we teach only love? It's kind of a theory. And how do we make it applicable? The theory is basically that God is love and the creator of love, and that we are each created by this creator. So we must be loved because nothing leaves its source. If you're not sure what that means by nothing leaves its source, or whatever theory and application means, or how we are applying it, after, as Mary said, after the talk, we have an opportunity to have a conversation because we don't have all the answers, but we love the questions. And so we get to kind of unpack it. I'll be using the invitations of the content of A Course in Miracles. And in lesson 191 of A Course in Miracles, it says, I am the Holy Son of God himself. Dove covered this lesson this morning, actually. I am the holy daughter of God herself. And it goes on to say, be glad today how easily is hell undone. You need but tell yourself, I'm the holy Son of God. I cannot suffer, cannot be in pain, cannot suffer loss or fail to do all that peace asks. So we come, together, and we come to this, these teachings that say, like, we cannot suffer loss. That I'm a holy Son of God. I cannot suffer loss. I cannot suffer pain. I can do all that peace would have to ask of me to do. And if your ego is anything like my ego, which is large and in charge, that might seem absolutely radical. No suffering, no pain, no loss. Am I capable to do all that peace would ask of me? I feel like God is expecting a little too much. We're here to evolve in our spiritual awareness of ourselves, and we don't want to continue to be like bottom feeders. So it goes on to say that if you look at all the things from acceptance, that you are a glorious creation of God. If you look on things from the perspective of knowing that you are a glorious creation of God, in that thought is everything you look on made holy, is everything you look on wholly changed. And that's the theory. The application is we do get to see people who walk the world like this. Jesus walked the world. He didn't co-sign suffering. He didn't co-sign pain. He didn't co-sign anything. He was like, no, dog, you got to get up. You need to get up. You might not think that you got it, but there is a God within you that has it. And he even says this about himself. He says, it's not me, it's the God within me that does this. So, as we teach love, we got to go to the source of love and lean from our humanity into our divinity, because it's done unto us as we believe. And we want to believe in that higher experience that we're all heir to. In the Course, it says, when you teach, you strengthen the idea. You strengthen an idea when you share it. So if you want a love life, if you want a life filled with love, you're called upon to share loving thoughts and loving ideas. And then heal any ideas that are based in suffering or loss or pain. And by heal, I mean forgive. No matter how badly you've been, cut down, forgive yourself for thinking that you're not worthy of a resurrection. That's all that's happening here. And sometimes you might be tempted to teach despair or anger or division, but these are not lessons that you want to strengthen, because that would be like pissing in your own pool or spitting in your own soup. And I know that sounds kind of gross, but let's not pretend that your judgment and despair and fear don't taint the conscious stew. They do. You get to live in the world that you invest in, and you don't need to add any alternative ingredients to God's recipes. God's recipes don't hold despair and loss and pain. We don't have to add that if we don't want to. In fact, God knows nothing of disease and division. God's math is addition and multiplication. So how do I teach addition and multiplication? Or how do I teach division? Is there anyone that I have left outside of my heart? If so, I'm teaching division. And we've said, even those who harm you, like hearing, Yoshi's experience today, like even those who harm you, don't let anybody give you the temptation of hating them, even if they're unkind. They're just a call for love. So every lesson you teach, you learn. And that's why we must teach only one lesson if you're to be conflict free. This is all from the Course. It says you must learn only from the Holy Spirit and teach only from him. So what the heck is the Holy Spirit? It's a spirit that is your guidance, and it's whole, meaning it lacks nothing. It sees all things, it knows all things, it has all things, it holds all things. It holds all things in love. It holds you in love. It holds your brother in love. It's like that field that Rumi spoke of no right and no wrong. Think of your Holy Spirit as a wise, kind, benevolent, grandmother who delights in you. And just ask your grandmother, how do I teach love? And continue to ask, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? This is an act of humility, to empty ourselves to the direction of love. And of course, it gives us that script to say every day, maybe more than, once a day. Maybe you take it with you throughout your day. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? Talk about like service. That's like keeping your thumb on the pulse of service. That makes everything so simple. It helps us to give up the race and give up the chase. James Thurber is known for saying, all men should strive to learn before they die what they're running from and to and why. And once we figure that out, we can stop running. Peace does not run. Peace does not chase. Peace does not strive. Peace does not effort. It is not conflicted or distracted. It is not distracted with addictions or alternative altars. Peace is powerful. Peace is regal. So why are we running? You might think, like I used to think, like I'm running because I'm a runner. I have to run. I didn't even know I had a choice. I didn't know there was another speed on my, makeup. I just thought it was always run, 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 and that you're late. But then I met some people who had another way of being, and I found that this other way of being was this slower path. And this one particular person gave me this prayer one day. And this is how it goes. It says, we pray for another way of being, another way of knowing. Across the difficult terrain of our existence, we attempt to build a highway, and in doing so, we lost our footpath. God, lead us to our footpath. Lead us to where, in simplicity, we may move at the speed of natural creatures and feel the earth's love beneath our feet. Lead us there where step by step we may find the movement of creation in our hearts, and lead us there where side by side we may feel the embrace of the common soul. Nothing is loved at speed. God, lead us to the slow path, to the joyous insights of the pilgrim, another way of knowing, another way of being. I love this line, nothing can be loved at speed. I think it's the most perfect line. And so if you want to teach love, you have to acquire a tolerance for peace and for the pace of peace. We have to give up all the running. Most of us run because we think too much. Form follows consciousness. If you find yourself running your life, it's because you're running your mind. And we've become addicted to our thinking. Course in Miracles says it's only your own thinking that can harm you. And this overthinking is quite harmful. Your negative thoughts block the thoughts of God. Your positive thoughts, so even your positive thoughts, your fancies and your flavors and your favors, all of those are shadows on the thoughts of God. So it would be great to give up this addiction of thinking. Love does not require us to think. In fact, thought and the addiction to thought can actually block love. We get into analysis paralysis. We get to think about it. We get to talk about it instead of be about it. So thinking is not knowing. Thinking is something I do on my own. Thinking is something I do with ego. Knowing I do with God. Knowing is Holy Communion. And that's why they say, be still and know God, not be still and think God. And so we've been invited right now in this time, time and time again, be still and know God, be still and know God. But this invitation goes unattended even when we meditate. We might get still in our physicality, but in our mentality, we're just thinking. What is our mind running about? These thoughts are the blocks to knowing. And so we get to look at those blocks. Look at your thoughts. I seem to be thinking about yesterday. I seem to be thinking about tomorrow. But where am I? And where am I in this moment? And do I need these thoughts in this moment? And can I just experience the experience of my breath and the temperature of the air on my skin? And can I start to court the experience of presence? I remember back in the day when I first started practicing the present, studying spiritual principles, and entertaining the idea of peace, I saw myself running from everything and everyone, and mostly from fires that I had started. And I remember thinking in this like marathon of my life, I remember thinking, I'll bet Oprah Winfrey doesn't run. I was like, Oprah Winfrey can't be running this much when you're that productive and prolific. You must be really conscious of your energy as well as the organic energies of the season. And right now, we are in the most perfect time to get still. We are in the most perfect time to practice the presence. In January, when the world wants us to run around and make intentions and set goals. But if we really pay attention to the deep call of winter, there's this organic pull that is an invitation for greater stillness, a greater silence, a greater gestation. Gestation is the process period of development inside the womb between the concept and the birth. It's this beautiful, mystical space. And we're in the season of that. We're in the season of the womb, the black void that seems to be like death. But it's actually, instead, it's a vortex of life. It's the catalyst for possibilities. And into this womb, if you rest a seed, it will grab on, and it will root down. It's an hour of great fertility. But here's the thing, fertility does not mean productivity. It does not mean busyness. It actually means stillness. It's the time before productivity, when you actually do nothing. The ego doesn't want you to know about this because its job is to keep you busy, distracted, and running. You're not responsible for the seeds, even though you want to press all of your, problems and, promises to the paws of God. You're not responsible for the seeds. You're not responsible for even the fruit of your labor, what you're here to deliver. You're not responsible. You're responsible for the soil of your soul. And as you allow yourself to rest and restore and revive your energies, you don't need to pay attention to what will emerge from your container because the concepts will come to you. Can the caterpillar even attempt to imagine flight? You have no idea what your potential is. You would shortchange yourself every single time. We can't solve the problem at the level of the problem. We have to lay low and let the greater concepts of God come. We cannot outgood God. So God brings the concept. She has the heirloom seeds that are untainted by conditions. You do not want to be the one in charge of what will emerge from the winter of your womb. You don't want to be in charge. Wouldn't it be better to trust the form that will surely follow your consciousness of love? Everything good, beautiful, and holy that you've already brought into the world was fathered by this divine. So can we leave the planning to God and just lay open to the mystery? Can we offer up some fallow fields of faith? What is a fallow field? It's a field that's been plowed and prepared. And we do that personally, spiritually, by removing the blocks. By working working forgiveness principles. We plow our field by removing these blocks. And the fallow field is left unseeded. You don't press things into that. You actually give it a season to be uncultivated. How brave and beautiful is that, to lay fallow for God? In this time of year, it feels so much like we're entertaining, all of these externals when it's all calling us to go within, enter the womb, enter the mystery. And if we take this time to stop running our plans, running our dreams, running our minds, running our mouths, and just get still and just allow, that's faith, man. So much wisdom and comfort lives in the silence. So, so we allow the most holy concepts, the immaculate concepts to come for us, the concepts fathered by the divine. And these concepts carry with them all that they need to be delivered. And all we need to do is be noble midwives to help carry the concepts of love into form by not negating them, by surrendering, by allowing. This is not something that the ego does. The ego doesn't know anything about surrender and allowing. It's already written out all of its plans for the year. It knows every minute it's going to spend, how it's going to spend it. I don't even know if it even waits to listen and allow. And so, we get to practice this. The fact is that this is also the time when we seem to be barraged by the world, the ever seductive invitations And I don't know if it's because we're more vulnerable at this time, we're so impatient to get the year started, or having survived the holidays and maybe more tired than ever, that we really do need a rest, and we just have no idea of how to do self-love. So we just push, push, push forward. But this is not the time to lasso the moon or toss your wishes to the stars. This is a time of silence, surrender, sipping soups, walking in isolated woods, going for deep, swims in the cold ocean. It's the time for the slow path. It's the time to listen. It's a time that is part of the cycle of creation, equal to the spring of spring and equal to the growth of summer, equal to the fruits of fall. It's the time of emptiness and hibernation. It's an important time to honor, and I do hope that you do. We don't have to spend all of our days in stillness, but to have balance, it would be great to have some stillness in all of our days. We can learn so much from doing nothing. So much wisdom and comfort comes from the stillness. The Course in Miracles gives us this recipe. It says, look, wait, and judge not. If anything's ushered into your experience and through your threshold in fear, don't worry about it. Just look, wait, and judge not. Why? Because if it's ushered in from fear, it will self-implode. You need do nothing but look, wait, and judge not. If anything is ushered through your threshold in love, don't worry about it. Why? Because it will carry within it everything it needs to expand and grow. It has all that it needs. And you can do the same thing. You can look, wait, and judge not. The waiting, the withholding of judgment, that grace period of patience, it's not easy. We're so domesticated into doing, 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 pressing our fingerprints to our projects so we can say, look what I did, instead of look what God did through me. Will made some bread the other day, and I learned because I was watching him make this bread. And it turns out, which I didn't know, you need to let the bread just sit for a good time, this period of doing nothing. And I was like, where's the bread? And he's like, it's just waiting. I'm like, for what? And this is where we are. If we don't honor this, we can burn ourselves down. We can easily get pulled into this present parade of seduction by siren songs that seduce us into action. And I'm not sure how, January got snagged and dragged by the choir of intentions and intention setting and vision board borders and all of that. And if you do that, that's great. But you just might want to save your clippings and your markers for early spring, when there's a little bit more energy and light and clarity. Winter's not the time for expansion and growth. And no matter how hard you hold vigil, or it will not make the bread rise faster or the kettle boil. You may find 1,000 false prophets to tell you to do more, be more, hustle, hustle, hustle. And this manifesting mindset, it will not always produce more. It has a 50-50 chance, really. The law of attraction leads to distraction. Why? Because you're missing the train that you're on. You're literally missing the train you're on. And we get this addiction of thinking like we're supposed to be someplace else. But let me tell you something. If you have a God who you have to ask for more, then you've got a dumbass God. If you've got a God that's so absent that you need to remind her that you have dreams and desires, then your God must be kind of thick, and you might want to get a better God. And did you know you could fire your God and get a better God? You have full permission to do so. So how about we not do that? How about we just assume that our God is brilliant, knows us, loves us, has us, holds us, has the perfect timing for us? How about we assume that God has invested a time to lay fallow? How about instead, for now, we just enjoy the meal at hand? How about we digest what we've been given and not ask God for more with our mouths full? Now is not the time for that. Instead, attempt to empty yourself. This is the time to empty. God will fill you with everything. If you're running, if you're chasing something, or if you have been chased by something, or if you have fear or fancy, then you've placed your belief, your energy in an alternative altar, and you've placed your faith in the fickle form, which will change 1,002 times. In a non-dual teaching of A Course in Miracles, we have love and we have a call for love. Love is our natural state. A call for love is the thought that something is missing. So the thought of lack comes from our divided mind. The other day I was looking out the window. This is an application of how it can look in your mind. I was looking out the window in my home, and I saw this beautiful lake and this beautiful field and this beautiful pine trees. And I thought, this is so beautiful. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great to see a fox? And I have a soft spot for foxes, spiritual vixen. Vixen means female fox. I don't know if you knew that, but I love foxes, and I love seeing them. So I just think they're like magnificent little creatures, mischievous and clever and self-assured. So while I was looking out the window at this beautiful winter scene, I suddenly thought, I wish I could see a fox. And then as I thought about this fox, I started to not be here. I started to slowly slip into this fantasy of this fox, and how amazing it would be, and how I've already had these amazing creatures come to me. Like one time I had this huge hawk come and sit on this post all day long and just stare at me. And I was like, that was really cool. And then one time I found this bear up a tree by my house, and I was like, that was so cool. And the coyotes that have come and other foxes, we did a writing retreat last past summer. And when we were coming home one night from dinner, we saw the cutest little fox just standing at the end of this driveway, and he was so like fearless and noble. It was like he was greeting us. And I was like, so as I was looking in my mind at these fantasies of foxes, I became blind. I could no longer see the lake or the field or the pine trees. I was only seeing the absence of the fox. This is a lesson of Course in Miracles. I'm upset because I'm seeing something that's not there. And what's not there? Me. I'm the one who's not there. I'm the one who left the building. So I see only projections. So I was blinded by my thoughts about the fox. But thank God, Lake Superior is a jealous lover, and she does not like to be ignored. And so the lake whispered to me, "What's up? I'm not enough?" Which made me snap out of my daze and turn my attention back to the lake. And I saw the lake, and this time I really took her in, and I saw her in all of her magnificence, and I couldn't imagine wanting to see anything more. I was actually in awe. The lake is awe-inspiring. But here's the thing, your presence is awe-inspiring. Whether it's a lake or a ladybug or a cup of coffee or the voice of your child, if you pay attention, we live in a sea of invitations of awe, and we move through them with blinders on. And that's what I was sharing before the call. Remember that prayer, across this terrain of our existence, we attempt to build a highway. To where? And in doing that, we lose our footpath. So we've attempted to microwave our lives, and we've lost sight of our audacious encounters that are at hand. Each day, each moment, we have the opportunity to teach love or greed or love or discontent or love or fear or love or lack or love or blame. And we cannot give what we don't have. So if we want to be helpful, if we want to be teachers of love, we gotta court love. And we must not forget that we come from love. We can't really change that we come from love, but we can forget that we come from love. So in my remembering and my returning to that moment, I asked the lake, how do I teach love? Because you can find wisdom in everything if you pay attention. And the lake said to me, stay present, woman, and stop chasing foxes. Damn. And it said, accept the perfection of this moment. And in that invitation, I watched the waves fall and rise 1,000 times. And I saw within this perfect moment, I saw the inconceivable amount of change that's happening all the time and too often to calibrate. And the lake has agreed to hold all of this change without judgment and without fear. And this is how we're supposed to love, to not fear the change when it comes to change. We don't need to track it. We don't need to fear it. We don't need to judge it. Within the dream, change is constant. So the other message was to make peace with this ever-shifting, changing world. Accept the changes, or at least the appearance of changes, because when it comes to what is real, change is impossible. Accept change, but treat all things the same. The lake of the water hits the shores equally. And that's a concept from A Course in Miracles as well. The waters do not attempt to show up more in one place or the other. So to teach love, make sure all things are the same. Love all things equally. Let yourself be true no matter who's in front of you. When you meet anyone, from the Course, it says, remember, it's a holy encounter. As your waters meet the shore of your brother, remember, as you see him, you see yourself. As you treat him, you treat yourself. As you think of him, you think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him, you lose yourself or find yourself. And the final lesson that the lake gave me was the one I didn't want to actually accept, because it said, take up space and let others be in awe of you. And I thought, that can't be true. That sounds egotistical. But as I listened, the lake, said, if you are love and if you are loving, you will not just live in a state of awe towards others, but you too will be audacious. your actions, your offerings, your attitudes will stem from that love. And you will be like that ladybug in that lake, you know, equally audacious no matter your size. So get comfortable with that. Don't let it scare you. When you live a life in love, you will cause 1,000,000 ripples, 1,000 rivers of love. And so when I got done listening to the lake, I turned to my husband and I shared with my husband, who was sipping tea in the corner. When I was done sharing with him the story of the lake, he smiled and he leaned in and he said to me, "You're a weirdo." I started laughing and I knew that the fox had arrived. So nothing is withheld from us, from those who are so loved. Do you know how dearly you are loved by God? You might want to debate it. You might want to deny it. You might want to denounce it. You might want to call it weird, but it's, you know, I invite you. I'll close with this. I'll invite you just for shits and giggles. Maybe you could, as a scientific experiment, maybe you could accept that this is true. And that if you accept it, you have a better chance of extending it. And you will not be able to prevent yourself from teaching only love, for you will remember that is what you are. And that's the word.
Maureen, that was just fantastic. The fox is in the room, ladies and gentlemen. The fox is in the house. Going to pass to Mari, if I may, just before we go back into the conversation with Maureen. Mari, in your own time. Thank you.
Speak Easy is a non-for-profit virtual spiritual community, and we exist on the generosity of all of our community members. We thank you for playing your part and for taking the opportunity to make a donation for today's Daily Bread. Your generous donations help us to bring spiritual leaders, artists, and speakers to Sunday service and keep these important conversations going. As you were spiritually fed by today's conversation, I invite you to just go within and see what is yours to share. No gift is too small. The donation link will be in the chat, or you can always go to speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com if you feel a nudge in the middle of the week to just share your financial gifts. We are there. So just go to speakeasyspiritualcommunity.com. And I bless all of your gifts. I know they will come back to you multiplied. Thank you.
Maureen Muldoon, it's always a pleasure when I get invited to host until I get here. and you go deep, and you've given considerable consideration to what it is you want to talk about. And so I've been writing copious notes here, trying to figure out where do I go with this. But I got a few things, if I may, and I'm going to invite people, please, to join the conversation. That's the whole idea here. It's not a chat between myself and Maureen. And you don't have to necessarily come in and think of a wise question to ask. If something has stirred inside you, and you thought that point hit me, spoke to me, come in and rephrase it in your own words. That's all. That's all that's being asked of you. Because I was delighted, myself and a group here, we went through a Wigwam course together for 6 weeks before Christmas. And most of the learning, a lot of the learning came from other people reframing what was being taught, what was being spoken about, and being heard differently by others. So if there's something in your heart that spoke to me today, please come in, put your virtual hand up and come in and just share it. That's all, okay? Maureen, I got a word for the year. I've been challenged by people online. Lise, we'll be with you in a second. Great to have you here. I was challenged online by various different people asking what's the word I have chosen for the year. They weren't asking me specifically. They were asking, the internet, what's the word? And I didn't have a word until today. So thank you for that. My word for the year is patience. And I loved what you were talking about earlier, and just before we kicked off, you were talking about you love hibernation and you love this time of the year and almost feeling guilty about that. But let's not, one of the things we need to do is forgive. You spoke about forgiveness, but let's start by forgiving ourselves. The foxes and the bears and the birds here, they go to sleep as soon as the sun goes down, whether it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 11 o'clock at night. They go to bed, right? And they get up when the sun rises, whatever time the morning is. So we need to learn that stuff and then apply it into our own lives. And we need to forgive ourselves. We need to be patient with
Yeah.
ourselves, in my opinion. And I'm going to pass it back to you, Maureen, and then Lisa will bring you in a second, just to reflect on that, if you don't mind, because I've said this before. You arrived to us today, dare I say it, as a fully formed individual. You got your shit together, to use Lisa's phrase from earlier, right? But you also didn't have your shit together back in the day. That's the important thing. And I think it's important that people understand this is a lifetime journey, slow and steady and patient and forgiving. Do you want to comment on that, Maureen, before we bring Lisa in?
Oh my God. Well, I think this is the hardest season for me because, as it might be for many of us big egoed people, because I don't trust that God has me and that I can, that my life deserves a Sunday, a respite, a silence, a stillness. And, so the ego gets me with like, you don't deserve it. I think of a story about my brother-in-law who went to Desert Storm, and in his training, they were allowed to go outside and smoke a cigarette to take a break. And so everybody took up smoking because they weren't allowed to stand outside and just take a break. They had to be doing something. so like that's the mentality, is you have to do, you even when you're resting, you have to be doing something. Like, it was so interesting to me to think that he couldn't say, can I just go outside and breathe for 5 minutes? He was like, no, you can smoke. so so it's deeply ingrained in our society to not allow ourselves to go at the pace of peace. And yet when it's said in that prayer, like, let me go at the pace of the creatures. I was listening to an NPR story, and these two men were taking care of these bears in the wild, and they had to tranquilize them in their caves and then change their their tracking devices. And they talked about this huge bear that they came up against, and they were so in love with the bears, like they didn't want to do them any harm, but they were like, the bear was so big that they needed to give him like 3 times the tranquilizer. And they were like, these bears, we can usually go in and do this work because they go so deep in hibernation. They go so deep, and I know this might sound kind of gross, but they don't even like poop or pee during hibernation. They plug it all up and it all stays inside their system. Like, that's how deep they go. They just cut off all systems and they unplug. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface of that. But you, as a cold water swimmer, there are practices that we have access to that take us and shake us out of what we think is our normal systems. Wim Hof, I mean, he was able to swim under freezing cold water because he understood how to fully detach. And detachment doesn't mean death. It just means restoration. I'm not a master of it, but in my own journey, like you said, like, I've come from being a hot mess to having like a few breaths of peace, which is a miracle. And it has been just really learning how to honor stillness and silence.
I love it. I love it. And is it fair to say it has taken time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, but I will say progress is perfection. Like, every step that I've taken has brought me closer and closer to my balance. And
Wonderful.
and I have not arrived. And in a year from now, I'll go, wow, I made progress. And a year from then, wow, I made progress. I don't think the little drop of the ocean has, the capacity to expand all the way to be the full ocean, but we can stretch, and we can surrender, and we can allow ourselves to have a greater degree of consciousness.
There's a phrase, I'm going to pass to Lise now. There was a phrase that I came across in a book. It was to do with one of the early explorers of the Antarctica. And I think the book is called Make Haste Slowly. Really nice phrase, make haste slowly. Lise, you're very welcome. Talk to us.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much, Maureen. Thank you for hosting. I mean, I wrote like everything that you said down. But like, you've got all these monikers, Maureen, that like really stick with, like, okay, like progress is perfection, stay present, woman, and stop chasing foxes. But I'll talk about those animal healing cards for a second that I talked about a couple weeks ago. My second reading that I gave was to somebody else, my friend Andy. And we picked the fox card actually. And I read him this thing, which is Fox's ability to be unseen allows it to be the protector of the family unit. If danger arises, Fox has Johnny on the spot. Duty of keeping the family together and safe, blah, blah. If Fox has chosen to share its medicine with you, it is a sign that you are to become like the wind, which is unseen, yet able to weave into and through any location or situation. In learning the art of camouflage, you need to test your ability to pull this off. And I love that. And then it was funny though, talking about camouflage, because we do this whole reading and it really applies to Andy, my friend's situation at the time. And then we like open our eyes or whatever, and we look and Andy goes, whoa. And he points, and I had this set up, which I'd forgotten that I had this really cute. Is this what it looked like, Maureen, the little baby fox?
Yes.
Anyway, so
Cute.
there you go. I just love that because it like the fox tied in really well with your winter thing.
Thanks for reading to us about the fox. Isn't that interesting? Be like the wind. Okay.
Yeah, like the Dirty
Carry
Dancing.
nothing. Yeah. Okay. That's great direction.
I love it. Lise, thank you for that. That's great. Thanks for your for being involved. You said something about I'm going to rephrase this badly, but about not jumping on every problem that arises. You know,
Yes.
take a step back from it. And it reminded me that Napoleon was famous for not responding to letters for 3 weeks. He wouldn't even open a letter for 3 weeks,
Yeah.
because oftentimes, whatever the situation that it had resolved itself, had been resolved.
Yes.
And there's wonderful wisdom in that, really. You know, like seriously, how many things in our lives are that life-threatening that we must be on them immediately? Seriously, very few.
Yeah.
Joan, great to see you. Sorry, Maureen, did you want to respond to that? I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, like, there's so many levels of it. Like, to say, like, if somebody invites you to do something, no matter what it is, whether it's a baby shower or run for president, no matter what it is, no matter how hot and, you know, horny you are for that invitation, always say, let me think about it. Always, 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 always say, I'll get back to you in 24 hours. It just really gives you the opportunity to not move from like this guttural instinct and include your mind, your heart, and your gut all. The more I do this, the more graceful my life is. It's easier to turn a no to a yes than a yes to a no. So it's so important. And we hear lots of people who have said there's nothing that's more powerful than a good night of sleep. Like, let yourself sleep on these things. You can even ask, put your little questions under your pillow. If I'm supposed to take this job, am I supposed to take this engagement or whatever? And just say, Holy Spirit, like, use my dreams, because I'm too running around in my mind during the day that I'm not settled enough to actually see the signs or symbols. Brenda actually introduced me to a book recently about signs, and I'm a big proponent of asking for signs. And the more you believe, and it's done unto you as you believe. So anyway, that's what I'd say about that, but I'll pass it to you, Joan.
Thanks for that. I used to have this phrase, the answer is yes, what's the question? And
Yeah,
I've learned, it sounds like we could be twins, Maureen, but anyway, I've learned the answer is now no, what's the question? Let me think about it. Joan, great to have you here. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I loved your whole talk, Maureen, as always. And I know that personally, I've been working on just maintaining a state of peace. That's what I call it. And just being aware throughout my day of where when I start feeling like dysregulated, I'm anxious, I'm wherever, and like what's causing that, and really been trying to work on that. And I think that I love you're talking to the lake and then like listening. And I feel like that is hard for me to do that. And then I think, well, am I listening, or I start getting in my head, am I listening, or am I just hearing my own thoughts? Am I like tying into the universe, to the divine, to hear what they're trying to tell me? So how do you have like a suggestion of getting out of your own way when you're trying to make that connection?
You already do it in certain areas. You do it with your dog. You and your dog have a conversation, and he's definitely not speaking English.
Yeah.
So, but you know what he's talking about without you having to really have a conversation with him, because you're listening. So
Mm.
you give yourself permission to have that unspoken relationship with your dog. If you can have that unspoken relationship with your dog, you can have it with your lake, with your cup of tea. You know, again, like this sounds like I'm inviting everyone to go insane. but everything has wisdom in it for you. God speaks to me all throughout the day. And this is a way to check in with your internal compass and to continue to track that conversation. Some people can get it through writing. Some people can get it through walking in nature. Some people get it with their animals, with their plants, with them, with their environment. Like you create this environment that, you know, some people get it with crystals, you know. So I would say, don't say you don't do it. Notice where you do it, and then continue to expand on that and give yourself credit for where you're capable of doing that. And because you're very intuitive, and the more you trust that, you know, there was this book called The Alphabet versus the Alphabet versus the Goddess by Richard Slane. And he talked about how back in the day we had only wisdom and stories to share orally with each other, and we learned through watching. And then we began to take the meaning and put it into symbols, and we learned how to write words, and we created words and then paragraphs and then dictionaries. And then we said, if you only have wisdom if you know how to decode the words, and you no longer have wisdom if you're moving by your gut or your tribal stories. That's not wisdom. That's crazy. That's crazy talk. And you're only smart if you know our special words and our special codes. And of course, we kept those from many people, mostly women. And we said the feminine, you know, wisdom, the intuition is not viable. So we're turning back to, you know, we started, you know, writing these pictures on caves, and the picture tells 1,000 stories. It could be interpreted by so many people. The river, the oceans can be interpreted by so many people. And then we moved from pictures into symbols, and then we moved into symbols into separation of intelligence. And then we move, you know, back into, you know, typing with our thumbs, you know, and then we move into emojis, and look at all the emojis that are up. So we're going back into learning that images, like Instagram, that's why it's so hot, is that people are taught through visuals, through, you know, images. And so but it has been, that type of wisdom has been like demonized, because we don't, because you can't measure it. And if you can't measure it and you can't sell it, it means nothing.
Well, great question, and so well answered, Maureen. And you know, I'll throw in my tuppence halfpenny worth, Joan, which is just be patient with yourself. Just keep doing it. Don't overthink it.
That too.
And this time next year, you can report back in and tell us how the year has gone. How's that? Come here. There's a queue forming here, Maureen, to talk with you. Dov Fishman, followed by Yoshi Newman. Dov, you're very welcome. Come on in, please.
Wonderful topic. Thanks, Maureen, because especially now in the wintertime, you know, it's like, why aren't I doing something? And my thought is, well, maybe I should go to Florida or California where people are doing something, you know. But you're right. There is a season, and you know, I posted it up in the chat from the Bible. For everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. It's really okay to just be with yourself. The story I wanted to tell is one of my real favorite stories from a guy named Norman Vincent Peale, and some of you recognize the name. He's one of the earliest radio TV ministers ever. Wrote the book The Power of Positive Thinking, and he has a story about the idea that when things happen and you react, you know, it's worry that says, well, I got to do something. That is the worry. And he looks at the word worry, says comes from the Old English, which means wrangled, which is to strangle. Worry strangles the spirit. So someone said, well, what do you do when something happens and you got to do something? He says, well, I write it down on a little piece of paper, and I put it in my Wednesday afternoon worry jar. And every Wednesday afternoon, I take a cup of hot tea, and I sit down and open up my jar of things that I thought I had to worry about. And he said, would you believe that 95% of these things you know, they already took care of themselves. The
Yeah.
guy says, well, what do you do with the other 5%? He said, put it back in the worry jar for next week, you know. So, you know, the idea of thinking or worrying is exactly what the ego wants you to do. Wants you to, you know, think about it, react. And there's no accident that, you know, in the Course of Miracles, there's a whole section called I Need Do Nothing. It says this will save you a century of contemplating and trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
I need do nothing.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that we're actually going to do nothing. It just means that we're going to not do the doing. That there is a, just as Jesus said, there's a God within me that knows who is doing the doing. I'm just going to sit here and take, you know, dictation and take note. Where would you have to go? What would you have to do right now? I'm on a need to know basis with the Holy Spirit, which makes it really easy. Yeah.
Love
Thanks,
that.
Deb.
I love the Wednesday worry jar, Dov. You have me converted. Thank you for that. That's great. And I didn't see that coming. What do you do with the other 5%? Well, put them back in the jar, wait till next week. That's fantastic. Up there with
It does
Napoleon.
sound pretty Irish to me.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. It really is.
Sounds very.
So, love, lovely to see you, and thanks for being here.
It's Yoshi.
Yoshi,
So, you know, the part of the beauty of this community and all the other classes and offerings that take place is, you know, it's like Maureen said, you know, you can be a weirdo, but it's not weird. We understand. There's just this common understanding. So, Maureen, when you said, don't be a bottom feeder, I'm not sure what you meant, but where I went with that is, you know, think about who's worthy of my time. Think about who's worthy of, you know, who am I going to reach out to? So I find that it's difficult to where I live. I don't have a community like this. So it's difficult to find people that I can have conversations where we can be on this level of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels very superficial otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if, you know, that's being a bottom feeder. And it's like, well, you know, you don't need to seek out people who are superficial. Why would you, you know, why would you squander your time that way? You know, so that was partly my question. The other comment I wanted to say is, wow, I really would like to be able to just call some of you up and say, let's go for a walk.
Where do you live?
I live in Greenville, North Carolina.
Oh, we have people in North Carolina. So, you know, we can, you know, this year of Service That Sings, we're going to invite pockets wherever two or more are gathered to connect, whether you're in, you know, North Carolina or California, and see if we have a 1,700 people in our community, and see if there are people who are close to each other, and see if once a month you might want to get together and do, you know, the sacred service of singing, chanting, sound healing, whatever that looks like for you. And then maybe there's something else that comes out of that. Maybe it's community service. Community service is so amazing. So we're figuring it out, because we have heard you, and we have heard people say, I wish I had in-person gatherings. And so we're figuring that out slowly.
Yeah. So back to this question of, you know, in the interim, because this will happen, you know, this question of, you know, who to choose to spend time with, who to reach out to, and
well,
not
here's a
settle.
great thing. There's a great thing. There's a great thing. Don't make any choices. You do not know your own best interest. Love the ones you're with. And if they seem to be obnoxious or abusive, love your way the way out of them. Don't burn the bridge. Don't amputate them. Love them so much till they disappear or fall away because they'll be allergic to that much love. But love your way out of things. Don't divorce. Don't detonate. Love your way out of it. This is a call for love. And if you don't love your way out of it and you detonate or divorce, you will show up in the same classroom a block down the way. So go to that person, Don't say you're not worthy of my love, because you're under my nose, so you're here. So ask, why do I hate you when I'm supposed to love you? Why do I judge you? Why do you, why do you bother me? And then
Yeah.
ask the Holy Spirit to heal that in my mind. Yeah.
Good.
luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Thanks, Yoshi. Thanks, Yoshi. Thanks for being here and for getting involved. This really is the secret sauce of Speakeasy. So, thank you, one and all. I think, Maureen, it's been fantastic. It's a great start to the year. Certainly from my perspective. I love where your mind goes when you sit down to prepare a talk for us. Maureen Muldoon, anything to add before we pass to Lou Martin to sing us out?
No, I just thank you for bearing with me for my lake story, because even I thought I was a bit of a weirdo, but I'm so grateful for this community that allows me. Hasn't burnt me at the stake yet. Thank you, Colin, for your service, and thank you, Lou, for your service. Thank you, everyone, for your service. God bless.
Hunter Thompson said it still isn't weird enough for me. So I'll give you that. That was gorgeous, you guys. Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite spiritual teachers of my whole life. We know him as John Lennon, and we'll leave you with Across the Universe. Words are falling out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slip and fall, they pass, they slip away across the universe. Pools of sorrow, waves of joy are drifting through my open mind, possessing and caressing. Jai Guru Devala. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Images of broken light which dance before me like a million eyes and call me on and on across the universe. Thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble like as they make their way across the universe. Jai Guru Devala. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Sounds of laughter, shades of hope are ringing through my open views, inciting and inviting. Limitless, undying love which shines around me like a million suns and calls me on and on across the universe. Jai Guru Devala. Nothing's gonna change my world. 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 Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slip and while they pass, they slip away Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. What a way to start the year, folks, to be here in Speakeasy. Thank you indeed, everybody, for being here, Maureen, for facilitating it. I'm going to go off reservation entirely here now. Lou, would you stay there for a moment, please? Could you sing happy birthday to Will?
Oh,
And Will, are you happy to come
Acapella.
on camera, baker extraordinaire? And we just wish you a happy birthday, if Lou doesn't mind.
I don't mind. I don't play it on the guitar, but I can sing it. Yeah, we'll all sing it
Perfect.
he's
together.
on.
Hey, Will, there you go.
Birthday to you.
Self-professed weirdo.
Happy birthday to
To
you.
you.
Happy birthday, dear Will. Happy birthday
to
you.
Thank you all. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Lou. Thanks for that. Happy birthday, Will. Maureen, thanks for everything. Well done, everybody. Happy New Year. And let's have a great one.
Yeah, let's do it. Bye.